Our next speaker is Elijah Kabaso. So in this conversation, we're going to be speaking on navigating capital markets investments in Zambia. Elijah C. Kabaso is a Zambian investment professional and the president of the Capital Markets Association of Zambia, where he works with regulators, market institutions, and industry practitioners to promote the development, integrity, and growth of Zambia's capital markets. His role at the Capital Markets Association of Zambia focuses on market development, policy engagement, investor education, professional capacity building, and cross-border collaboration to position the capital markets as a driver of long-term economic growth. I hope that in this conversation today, we can be positioned as drivers of long-term economic growth. A round of applause for Elijah, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good afternoon to you all. Good afternoon. Okay, that's better, that's better. So my name is Elijah Kabaso. I'm here from the Capital Markets Association of Zambia. Many of you may have seen two gentlemen outside there, so please do feel free to pass through the desk and get a little more information beyond what I'll share here. And what we'll be doing is just sharing insights on how we can grow. Now, allow me to read a little inspiring story. How many of you have come across a name called Ronald Reed? Okay, how many? So 1, 2, how many? Others? 3? Okay, so for the sake of the many others that haven't, allow me to read a very brief story, and perhaps it will inform into some of the conversations we'll have. There was once a man from the United States called Ronald Reed. After finishing his service in the World War II, he took up a job at a service petrol station where he would fill up people's cars with gas petrol. So this is someone that works at, Total or Puma in Zambia, right? He did this for 25 years. 25 years he did this. He then worked at a part-time job as a caretaker at the department store for 17 years. So he worked for a total of about 42 years, doing very lowly jobs. During his whole work life, he never earned much money from his jobs. Many of his friends were poor. Ronald was different. Whilst he never earned a lot of money, he did manage to save a little bit of money he earned. It was these small savings that helped Ronald do something remarkable. It was until Ronald died in 2014. So this is just about 12 years ago, isn't it? At the age 92, so he lived a very long life. That people realized just how remarkable he was. So remember, he was a janitor, caretaker, very menial jobs. But when he died, the people that were looking after his estate, there's what is called the Sambolia for Tefio. Zambia, yeah. So that is an Sambolia in the United States. And they discovered that he had secretly amassed $8 million. $8 million. How much is that in our currency today? That's about 160 million kwacha. Assuming that the rate is 20 kwacha per dollar. 160 million kwacha for a person that was working as a janitor. Now, Ronald's wishes were very interesting. He had given 4.8. He had said that of this money that I've amassed, the $8 million, 4.8 of it should go to a local hospital, about 1.2 million to a local library, and the remaining 2 million went to his sons, caregivers, and family. So he gave only about 25% of his wealth to people that he was related to. It is believed that the only person who knew about his investments was his wife, and she had died before he did. So this is a very inspiring story, isn't it? And many of us earn a lot more than janitors do. And therefore, making money, amassing wealth is not about how much you earn, but it's about how much you keep, how much you have left over after you invest. I'll start with a little, this is the outline of our presentation today. We'll have a little spiritual reflection because we're in a church, right? I don't want to step too much on Trump religion, but it is part of our conversations. We'll talk about why Christians, as Christians, should care about investing. We'll talk about the importance of understanding what to invest in. We'll talk about the cost of planning for the future. We'll talk about, the capital markets and what we do. I'm sure you've seen the placard here, and what my fellow men are doing outside there. We'll talk about an overview of other investment decisions, right? We heard from Elder Katongo about investments in property, but we'll talk about other investments as well, what could be considered and what we could do. And it's important that beyond talking, we should walk the talk, isn't it? Beyond us having a spiritual and very nice time here, we should also have practical steps on how we can be like the Ronald Reed of Zambia. And then obviously we'll have some conversations about what we could do and a few questions if you may have any. Scripture in Proverbs 21 verse 5 has this to say that the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. People were talking about poverty and how much it's something to be avoided, right? No one wants to be poor, isn't it? Actually, investing is so important that all of us are gathered here to try to avoid it, to avoid poverty. And so the Bible says that the plans of the diligent will lead to abundance. It will lead to us having a lot more to save and a lot more to fall back on. And this verse reminds us that careful planning, patience, discipline, and biblical principles that naturally extend to saving and investing. It's important. People plan for weddings. I did plan for a wedding, and here I am. People plan for school fees. I was talking to a mother who was talking about how the kid will be graduating the next 3 years from high school. But most of us don't plan to just live a life beyond work. Most of us, there'll be a time that we won't have as much energy as we do. And we need something to fall back on, something to work for us even as we live. So the purpose of our conversation today, and it's a conversation, it's not a sermon, it's a conversation. It really wants to demystify, investing from a faith-based perspective. We want to talk about what's available in our country and what we can actually do. Beyond property, beyond anything that we may be aware of, what can we consider? And to encourage us, just like Ronald Reed, to encourage us to make investments and really to promote wisdom, stewardship, and understanding. We're very grateful that the stewardship department thought of this to give. And attending service yesterday, he mentioned that we're not only interested in you giving tithes, right? We're also interested in you being able to afford the tithe that you're going to give. Because some people might not be able to give because they don't have much to give. And so we need to equip them with the skills for them to have this money. 1 Corinthians 4 verse 2 says that, moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. We need to be faithful stewards. Faithful stewards means that most of the things that we amass, whether you're going to have a car, land, all these things, we're going to leave them someday, isn't it? But whilst we're on this side of earth, let's have a comfortable life. That's what we're going to talk about today. So God owns everything. Money is a tool and not a master. So let us use things to please people and not use people to please things. So investing is about preparing for future needs. It's about supporting family, community, and church, and also creating the capacity to give and serve. As I said, once we have a lot more Ronald Reeds, we'll have a lot more to get as a church. Maybe the building across will be finished in record time because people will have amassed so much to be able to give towards it. As I said, Ronald Reed ended his life at 92 with a net worth of 160 million kwacha, and he gave about 90 million to the church and in a hospital, because maybe he was passionate about health. If you're a passionate Christian, maybe you give that money to the church so that we can advance God's word and beyond. Now, we're going to talk about the importance of understanding what you invest in. You know, it's important that before you're able to invest in anything, you know what you're investing in, isn't it? There's a lot of schemes that people have been drawn into, and people have lost a lot of money off it. But what's important is understanding what you're investing in. Now, Warren Buffett is one of the richest men on this planet. He is a multi-billionaire, not a millionaire in kwacha, but a billionaire in dollars. And he has this to say. He says that never invest in a business you cannot understand. Never invest in a business you cannot understand. I saw a man when I walked in. He had something at the back of his top. He says "billionaire farmer," and I like that. That's the man there. We all want to be billionaires, isn't it? It would make life much easier, isn't it? We don't have to, you know. But to be a billionaire and to be a millionaire, we have to work as hard to ensure that we get there. And that's what we need. Investing is not gambling. It's not like Bola Bet. You know, people might know about Bola Bet and all those things, but investing is not about gambling. It's about understanding. What are you putting your money in? How is the money going to grow? How much money are you going to get out of it? How much money are you going to spend to get the money that you're going to earn? That's what investing is about. Careful planning, careful investing, and understanding what's happening. Proverbs 18 verse 15 has this to say, that the heart of the discerning acquires knowledge. Those that want to discern a lot, those that want to know much, need to acquire knowledge. We need to know what we want to invest in before we do invest. So you need to know everything that's involved. Don't be taken by surprise by anything that's going to happen to you, because that way, you'll be preserving your money. Now, I'll share a personal story before I talk about this slide. Growing up, I was born around Kawata area. Luckily, my father worked for a company called ZNPF before it changed to what we call now NAPSA. And so he worked there for a number of years. And then because they were making transitions from ZNPF to NAPSA, he was retrenched. Now, retrenchment means that you go the following day to work, and then you're told that your services are not required anymore. That was a very painful experience for him. It was very painful, and he had a wife, he had 3 kids, of which I'm the third, and he made some drastic decisions about how he was going to live his life going forward. And this was just in the year 2000. At that time, he was, in his early 40s. Now, the comforting thing is that ever since, he has never worked, right? He has never worked. He hasn't gotten any job. And yet, I'm here speaking to you about capital markets. What did he do? Luckily, in his early years, and he did not, earn a very big job. He was just an accountant in the finance department. But in his early years, he was putting away some money for a rainy day. Because of this, he did not, I only knew my father to be able to buy a car when I was a little older, right? So he did not own a car, but he had some investments that were able to accord us a comfortable life even after he was retrenched. Not retired, but retrenched. And a lot of things can happen. Anything can happen to anyone at any given point in time. You may wake up the following day and you have a very chronic illness that doesn't allow you to be able to work. Anything can happen to anyone. The quote here says that if you do not find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. If you don't find a way to make money whilst you sleep, you will work until you die. Imagine being 90 years old and having to go to work because you don't have anywhere to get money from. And so these conversations are not for anyone else. They are for each and every one of us in here, that we should make a plan around how we're going to be able to make money even whilst we're sleeping, and be able to afford for our families whenever anything happens to us. If we do not save and invest intentionally, we'll be working well out into our old age, out of necessity. There are people that, not that I'm blaming them or not that I'm looking down on them, but there are people that are very advanced in age and they talk about having to go to work. And it's not a very good experience. Some of the old people actually, depend on people having to give them some money just for them to be able to get by. It's not a good thing to always ask for money. You need to be financially independent. And, you miss out the opportunities of building a legacy. Like Ronald Reed, who had amassed 160 million kwacha at the time that he was dying. So indeed, those who do not save during their working years will pay the price in their old age. And you may not have the same energy, you may not have the same zeal that you have today, you may not be able to do as much that you're able to do today, and therefore it's important that we plan for such eventualities. So retirement is not an age. As I mentioned, my father, the retirement age in Zambia is about 60, isn't it? Hello? Right? It's about 60, between 55 and 65. Others, normal retirement is 60, late retirement is 65. Retirement is not about an age. It's about making a decision that, okay, I do not want to have to call someone sir. Every time that I would come from high school, and I talk to dad, he says, one of the things I'm excited about is that I don't have to call anyone boss in my life. I just sleep, earn a little money from rental income, as was spoken to by the previous presenter, and I get by. I'm able to afford my own food. I'm able to have, a decent life. That's what everyone wants, a decent life. And so we need to be able to make small and consistent steps every day. As I said, Ronald Reed is a perfect example because he did not have $1 million kwacha to start investing. No, from his little money that he was earning as a cleaner, janitor, as a cleaner, he was able to make small steps and small investments, and the money accorded him financial freedom in later life. Now, most of us have seen that picture, isn't it? What do we see there? Or what comes to mind when we see the picture there, if you're able to see it? Soweto Market, right? Soweto Market. It's a market, isn't it? That's where people buy tomatoes, they buy onions, they buy a number of things. And the capital market is a similar concept. This is where people, in the Soweto Market, who are the people that meet there? People that have something to sell, which is tomato, and people that have something to buy, which is the tomato itself, right? The capital market is a similar concept. It's people that are meeting each other, people that want to save, and people that want to borrow that money to be able to put it to good use. And these are platforms for people that want to grow money over the long term. So it's not money that, and obviously you can lend money to someone and they give it back to you after a month. But the best investors, if you want to be Ronald Reed, you need to think long term, not short term. Don't invest in something and expect that you have a lot of money tomorrow. You need to be very, very patient in your investing. And so these are platforms for people that want to save over the long term and people that want to borrow money over the long term. Businesses need capital. The government, for it to have all those things that they spend on in terms of deploying workers, teachers and nurses in all these places, they need money, right? And a way to raise that money is to come on the market. And the people that are going to give that money are the people like you yourselves in this place. That are the future Ronald Reeds, who are going to be able to invest in government bonds, in money that you lend to a business, in a lot of things that allow you to be able to invest. So these markets are both locally in Zambia. We have things like the Lusaka Securities Exchange. around the world, we have the New York Stock Exchange. All these are platforms that allow people that want to save and that want to borrow money to come together so that economies can grow. In the event that you do not supply the money, then people that want use for that money will not be able to have that money. And therefore, we need to be able to save over the long term. The first thing I'd like to talk about is shares. How many of us go to ShopRite? Right? Most of us know ShopRite, isn't it? But you know, ShopRite has owners, people that make money off you going to ShopRite to buy their things. And the good thing with the market is that it allows you to be able to be an owner in a business. Some of you may not be able to have the time, let alone the time, to be able to invest and start a cantemba somewhere. But you can start a cantemba at a large scale. You know, there's Zanaco. Zanaco offers shares on the Lusaka Securities Exchange. It ensures that people are able to benefit. Now, what do you benefit by owning shares? First of all, you have the ownership, so you own part of the business. And then secondly, the benefits that you get out of that is, first of all, dividends. Whenever Zanaco make profits, and a few years ago, they made a profit of like 2 billion kwacha. It means that when that 2 billion kwacha comes, they'll give you your portion, proportionate to how much you put in. You know, and over time, there was a time that ShopRite, and I'm only saying these names because they're the closest to us, right? There was a time that ShopRite was with a value of about 60 kwacha for a long period of time, right? And now when you go to the market and you want to buy a share in ShopRite, it's as high as 320, 330 kwacha per share. Means it's almost what? Increased fivefold. Fivefold. So these are the benefits. You are able to invest over the long term. You get some money. And as the previous presenter said, it's also a hedge against inflation. Things are getting expensive over time. There was a time when my parents, for example, were able to rent a house for 20 kwacha. Right? That was in the 1990s. Now rentals are north of 4,000, 5,000 kwacha for a decent house of the same capacity. So we need to be able to invest. But beyond that, you know, beyond what's in Zambia, because sometimes things in Zambia happen that may be against your favor and they may reduce your value. You need to be able to invest outside Zambia as well. You know, we use Facebook every day. Do you know that Do you know how Facebook makes its money? By the way, every time you go to Facebook, you look at an ad. People pay to be able to advertise on Facebook. We know a lot of businesses, even in Zambia, that pay Facebook to advertise there, isn't it? And if you have the money to invest in shares like Facebook, you can benefit by it increasing in value over time or you receiving dividends. So these are things that are fairly close to us and things that we need to consider going forward. So shares is one of the ways that you can grow your money. Another way is fixed income. And fixed income is government debt, so you can lend money to the government. I know we've talked about bonds before. This is essentially just you agreeing with someone saying that, okay, I have excess money right now. I may not have use for it, but let me lend the money to you, and then you'll be able to give it back to me at such an interest rate, right? So these are things that we should be able to consider. You'll be receiving your coupons on a 6-month basis. And perhaps before we go further, just going back to equities, how do you do this? Because beyond this information, it's important that people actually do it, isn't it? Right? You can own shares by, first of all, you need to open a brokerage account. There are a number of brokers, and some of them, my colleagues outside there, are ready to advise you on which ones you could consider. Another way is looking at a unit trust that offers equity funds. I see one of the providers within the building, and I'm sure you'll be able to interact with her, or she'll be able to introduce herself to you so that you can actually have these conversations about how you can grow your money. For government bonds, you're lending money to the government. The government needs a lot of money to be able to pay for a number of things. And so a way that you can take advantage is to lend money to them, right? And they'll give it back to you over a period of time. Every 6 months, you'll be receiving your coupon. There are also what are called term deposits, where you lend money to a bank, because the banks, lend to businesses and people that are in need of money. But they also need someone to get the money from, isn't it? It's just that they're a company that is organized enough to be able to pull money from a lot of people and be able to lend. So these are things that we could consider. And how do you do this? For government bonds, there's a website, www.boz.zm. Once you get there, there is a portal for people that want to invest in government bonds. And we're happy to have such conversations with you at a later time so that you can actually make decisions towards investing. Proverbs 13 verse 11 has this to say that wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. And we did see a perfect example of that in Ronald Reed. If we are to amass wealth, if we are to be rich, we have to gather money little by little. And these are ways in which we can gather money over time. I won't spend a lot of time on property because I think the previous presenter elaborated very intimately on this topic. But this is another avenue that we can grow money over time. Your property can increase over time in terms of value, and you also be receiving rentals whenever they fall due. I'm a person that's benefited honestly from such investments made by my parents. That's what educated me, and that's what accorded me to be able to speak to you about this investment. So these are not things that are very far from us. These are things that are practical and can help us in our daily living. The last thing I'd like to speak about, which is a kind of investment, is commodities. Zambia is an economy or the country that is driven by commodities. We export a lot of copper. We have a lot of gold mines in Mfumbwe, right? But not many of us will be able to just go to Mfumbwe and mine, isn't it? Some of us have jobs. Otherwise, we'll just notice that people are not showing up for work on Monday because they've gone to Mfumbwe, isn't it? Right? But this is a way that you can invest in such things. There are things called ETFs, things that track the price of copper. There was a time that copper, early last year, 1 metric ton of copper was going for about $9,000, sorry. And now it's about close to $13,000, meaning that it's grown over time, isn't it? And there's a way that you can ensure that you invest in such things. Some of the things will be coming to our market, but some of the options are outside our market. And you need to be very flexible to entertain both ideas. Find a way that you can actually invest in such things. There are people that have ranches, farms here. And, a cow gives birth, is it once a year? Maybe goats do twice a year. Those are things that grow wealth over time. Some of the examples that we have seen in the Bible are people that, like Jacob, who multiplied their wealth just by rearing goats and sheep and all those things. And these are things we should consider even in our work. Now, it's important to, even as you're doing these things, don't just say that, okay, the presenter talked about goats, let me just go 100% into goats or 100% into. There's a lot of things that happen over time. Maybe you might be fairly closer to retiring. You may need a little more cash. You may need to consider your age. You may need to consider a lot of things. And therefore, it's important that you look at your age, you look at your income, you look at risk tolerance. There are people that are just happy. There are people that are just happy with looking at property in its physical state. And that's the way that they'll be comfortable with money, right? But there are people that can take a little more risk and invest in shares because they know that it's going to grow over time. Remember, don't think of growing your money in the next 30 minutes. That is gambling, right? Be patient because little by little, the money will grow over time. And therefore, it's always important to consider a lot of things before you invest. And Ecclesiastes has this to say that, invest in 7 ventures. Yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land. You do not know what will happen to you. And therefore, please do take your time in understanding what you're going to invest in. And also understand yourself as a person before you make any of these investments. Now, this was a picture that I took when I visited a country, but I think it's representative of what we need to consider when we're investing. And I came up with a quote which says that the journey to a billion kwacha begins with one ngwe. Right? The journey to a billion kwacha begins with one ngwe. For you to have a billion kwacha, you need a lot of ngwes. If you remove one ngwe, you won't have a billion kwacha, isn't it? And therefore, we need to grow your money little by little. So start where you are. Don't wait for you to be able to get a promotion from work, or for you to have a lot of, or for you to have kids to take care of, or for you to have a lot of things to start where you are, and then always seek the advice of people that are licensed to give you advice. People like Yoda Katongo, people like myself, people like I'll have to pick on you, Mubanga, but people like Mubanga Nundwe, she works at a company that is able to give advice to people that want to invest. What's important, when I have a headache, right? When I have a headache, what do? I go to the doctor, because the doctor has spent a lot of time in school to learn how headaches work and what is going to be given to that person to feel better. And it's the same thing with investing. You don't have to do it alone. You can always have these conversations with people and ensure that you're able to get the best advice. And learn continuously, right? This workshop that we're having is a good thing. I'm sure the leader would think about other ways that they can engage us so that we can continue learning and growing, and even as we make decisions. And then lastly, pray for wisdom in financial decisions. Don't just go for it, but always seek the advice. Should I go into this? Pray about it, and then you'll be better off even as we go. So in closing, I would like to leave you with these remarks, that investing is not about greed, right? Investing is about being stewards. Remember the story of the person with 5 talents and 2 talents and 1 talent, right? It's not about the 5 talented person didn't say that, no, I want to just be wealthy. I want everywhere where I pass, they should know that, I'm there. But it's about wisdom in preparation for anything that can happen to us over time. As I mentioned, my family may have had a certain circumstance at that point in time, but they did well to ensure that they're able to prepare for such eventualities. And that's what we should be doing. Faith and finance are not separate. Gone are the days where we thought that the most holy person in the church was the one that had unpolished shoes. Did you get that? Yeah, sometimes you can have nicely polished shoes, a very nice suit on you, and still be a faithful steward of God. And so it's very important that we are able to think about these things. And good stewardship today enables greater impact tomorrow. If you're able to save a lot, if you're able to invest a lot, if you're able to grow your wealth over time, then we won't have to have this conversation, isn't it? Because all of you will be doing great things and leaving a greater impact for tomorrow. So with these very few words, thank you for your attention, and I hope you got some ideas about how to grow your wealth over time. And please do feel free to visit the desk outside there, even as you gain more insight about capital markets in Zambia. Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much, Elijah. Do we have any questions for Elijah? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we'll start there.
Good afternoon, Elijah, and congratulations on your wedding.
Thank you, thank you.
I've been wanting to talk to you for some time, and I hope I could set up a meeting with you maybe during the course of the week. With regard to capital, do I need to introduce myself? It's okay. It's okay. Yeah? Okay.
Like which stand, I think they would like to see you on the screens.
Apologies for that. My name is Pumza. I've tried to look at capital markets, in particular shares and stocks, and equity as well. And I've tried to visit some of these companies that, like the brokers, equity fund, like African Life, trying to understand fully. And I've come to realize that in a way, sorry for saying this, maybe it could be due to my ignorance, buying shares is slightly more of gambling, but in a diplomatic way. Let me qualify my statement. In that, as you put in your statement there, you had said that there is a risk because it fluctuates. It can go up, it can go down. and you're looking at capital gains and also looking at the dividends. Now, if you look at our stock exchange in Zambia, of course, now it's doing very well, but at the same time, for a very long period of time, it was not doing as good as it is now, but it still has a lot more to do. Okay? What I mean is that I'm starting, I put in a little bit of money, maybe say, because I don't have much excess money, I put in maybe 5,000, 10,000. And when I look at that, maybe in a medium to 10 plan, it not give me a lot of capital, dividends. And in fact, capital gains may not be a lot. And when I'm looking for information, when I try to talk to these brokers, you find that they will not give you that much information. What they'll be telling me about is something that I know, and I'm like, I think I can do this without them. But of course, the law requires me to have them for me to do that. Then when you read about books, you discover that the books that you're reading, basically, they're talking about those stock exchanges that are well established, like the New York Stock Exchange, you look at the London. Even Warren Buffett is talking from a perspective from an American economy, where he talks about companies, what you look. And when you look at our Zambia, you try to apply those ones, they're a bit difficult. My question is that, how can we get more knowledge that we do not invest in something that we do not understand? And does our capital, if I'm starting right now, stocks and equity, can it give me some good wealth that I can use to invest in other ventures? I bear in mind that, of course, these are long-term investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We had another question. I saw another hand. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. So my name is Justin. My surname is Kabandula. This question is going to my leader. I'm a trained financial advisor and a stockbrokers consultant. I did this training last year, and I wanted to find out from you the program that the SEC is doing together with the Pensions College, where they are training people to become financial advisors. I'm in the field where I talk about retirement preparation, and I have written a book about it, and we've been investing in shares with my wife because, it would be very unfair for me to retire very badly after all that. So part of my retirement plan is to invest in shares, and we've been doing that with my wife for some time now. It's a 10-year plan, and we are thinking our 4th year. So far, the journey has been very good. I think I would have answered this question, but I would not. I think I leave it to you. So now my question is, those trainings the SEC is doing with pensions, a college to train people to become financial advisors, out here, how are we allowed as non-financial personnel to get financial licenses? Because I'm a medical personnel myself, but out of interest, I went to do that training. Yeah, and I'm a certified and trained financial advisor. But even when I'm talking to people about these things, I fear, have my limits, because I'm like, SEC can grab me on this one. Yeah, then because I've noticed a lot of scammers, like what happened last year, Zambians are being scammed a lot. There's a Jinx company, invest and bring your friends. In 24 hours, you make 10,000. And we're quick to go for those things. Mm-hmm. So now, it hurts a lot. And I would want to speak more about these things, but I'm worried to say, so do I get my license for that? And if I can get my financial advisory license, what is the process? Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, 2. Okay, thank you. So the last question was about how to gain wealth over time and whether stocks are working, and is it gambling because we only have how many? Is it 20-something shares, right? On the LOSE. We may not have as many options in Zambia. That I will give you. But the good thing is that we're getting more options. I think there was a listing recently of .com Zambia. They provide some IT services. And now there's another one coming up, Clapton Re. It's a company that offers insurance to insurance companies. So it's a reinsurer. So options may not be many, but it's growing. And why I mentioned that it's always important to consider other options beyond what you have. And then I was also going to say that to your point, it's not important. It's not good to look at the price of a share and say, okay, I'm going to buy it. What do you know about the company? How do they make their money? Are you paying the right price for it? Right? And that's what people like me are paid to do. We go every day to work, we analyze these companies, we look at the price. Is this price worth it? Should it be lower or should it be higher? If it is trading at a price that's lower than what you think the value is in the company, then you buy it because you think that over time it will grow in value, isn't it? I know of a person beyond my work that I do. I know of a person. He's an individual investor. He used to work as a lecturer at UNZA. And the man, he wasn't from the profession of finance, but he used to invest. He used to get advice, go to AGMs, get more information about the company. And sometimes when a certain company, I won't mention the name as well, when a certain company that's listed on the LUSE pays dividends, he receives more than 2 million kwacha per year. 2 million kwacha per year. Some of the jobs that we have in here may not be able to give us 2 million kwacha per year because some of it will actually be taxed, isn't it? Right? But these are people that were growing their money over time slowly. So what am I trying to say? Yes, we may not have many options, and yes, we shouldn't invest in a company because the price is at a certain level, but we should always seek the advice of someone that is trained to do the job. Like a doctor is trained to be a doctor, to administer medicine and find out what's wrong in your body. So are financial professionals. They have licenses for it, right? So either do that, get a financial advisor. It might cost you some money for some. Others may be free if you're friends with certain people, but it might cost you some money. The second route is to get into a fund that is already doing that. So I know of a number of unit trusts that have invested in shares already. And once you invest in there, you get your money, but there are fees that are paid on that fund that are always less than what you're getting out of it. And maybe that's the cost of you actually being able to invest in such things. So we can talk further more, and I'll be able to advise you on some of the funds that are there around our country. But yeah, that's the cost of investing. You need to be able to seek proper financial advice or learn over time these skills like my brother did. And then coming to my brother, for you to be able to be a financial advisor in Zambia, you need to be licensed. Just like, the doctors, whenever they want to be licensed, they go through UNZA, and then after they graduate, they get that practicing license, isn't it? If it's the lawyers, they go through ZIALI, right? Same thing with financial advice. You need to do the stockbrokers course, but you also need to learn a lot more beyond the stockbrokers course because certain things that are learned over time may not be covered in that course alone. So you need to be able to be invested in terms of financial knowledge. And then once the right time comes, if you feel you're ripe for it and you can apply for licenses, most people, first of all, have to stop through Capital Markets Association of Zambia. You get your license there, you pay the fee that's required, both for the company that you're registering as well as an individual. And then once you do that, you get those papers and present them to SEC. There's a rigorous process that you have to follow for you to be able to get your license. So that's the advice I would give you. It doesn't stop you from applying for that, but you also need to learn a lot more within the field so that you can give the best advice possible. I hope that answers your question.
All right, a round of applause for Elijah Kabaso, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Elijah, for that presentation.